Mythic Brawlers don't grow on trees, and there are 25 different options at the Mythic rarity. Since it's tied for the biggest rarity and a really important one with so many good options, I'm going to rank every single one of them so you guys know exactly where to spend your hard-earned credit and who to target for your next unlockable brawler or trophy push. Starting off our top 25, we are going to be kicking it off with what I consider to be the 3 D-tier brawlers. These are going to be brawlers that I would skip, not necessarily waste my unlocks on if you can avoid it. If you have fun with them, great, but they're not the most competitive, they're not the best, and they would definitely need some buffs to be relevant once again. Those 3 brawlers are going to be number 25, Squeak, number 24, Janet, and number 23, Doug, as much as it pains me to put Doug in the D tier. Next up on our rankings is going to be the C tier brawlers. These are brawlers that I consider to be on the weaker side. You can win with them, but they'll be a little bit more difficult than some of the more balanced brawlers that we'll have ahead on this list. So at number 22, we have Tara, who has an awesome super, but doesn't deal the most damage, has a decent build up to get that super. Missed pulls can really cost you games, and you gotta be pretty decent with her to win with her. So for that reason, she's gonna be the bottom of C tier. Number 21 is going to be Lou, who, if you asked me 6 months ago, would probably be at the top of this list with his new hypercharge, but that hypercharge has been nerfed severely. The hypercharge is still solid, but Lou overall isn't quite what he used to be. He needs perfect matchups into things like hard tanks in order to really be good and to thrive. Otherwise, he's gonna get outranged by the Pipers and the Bells of the world, doesn't do the most damage. There are a lot of better brawlers out there. At number 20, I'm going with Willow, who's actually very solid at a professional level on some Brawl Ball maps. She's had some relevance in things like the Brawl Ball League if you've been watching me on Twitch, but with the randomness of Ladder and all the Edgars and the Mortis and the brawlers that can kind of stomp on her up close, I wouldn't take my chances with her, and I would probably go elsewhere if you're trying to gain trophies. Number 19 is going to be Eve, who can be relevant on some maps like Bounty, KO, maybe something like a safe zone, but she isn't necessarily some top frag kind of brawler, doesn't do an insane amount of DPS or anything like that. You got to play pretty perfectly to have a good game with Eve, and you're going to need some high damage output to pair with her because she doesn't do a ton herself. She does have some spawners, which is helpful. She can traverse over water, but other than that, she's just not special right now. Number 18 is going to be another brawler who is fantastic at a professional level, but for the average Joe out there like me playing on the ladder, which is mostly what this is going for, probably not going to be the best. Number 18 is going to be Colonel Ruffs. He's a very good support brawler, which is why pro players can do so much better with him, and if he was a pro tier list, I would probably go with a high B, low A kind of grade for Colonel Ruffs. He's showing up a lot recently, but for the average player like me or somebody trying to hit their 10,000, 20,000 trophy and looking for the next brawler to push, this probably isn't the one. Number 17 is going to be one of the newest brawlers in the game. It is going to be Lily. Lily didn't shatter the meta when she came out, which is honestly pretty refreshing. It's nice to see more of a balanced brawler. I think she could maybe use a little bit of love, but I think Lily's the kind of brawler, if they buff too much, she could get out of hand pretty quickly. So I'm pretty happy with where Lily's at. I don't think she's quite B tier. I'm getting a little nitpicky here, so I'm putting her at the very top of C tier. She has a great gadget. She's kind of fun if you play her. I've enjoyed the games with Lily that I've had, so I wouldn't discourage unlocking her. If you're going for wins and the easiest kinds of wins, though, I would probably go elsewhere, but nonetheless, Lily a great addition to the collection. Next up, we're going to be jumping into our B tier brawlers. For me, B stands for balance. These are brawlers that are decent win rate, a step up from those C tier brawlers. Going to be a little bit easier if you're playing with randoms on ladder and have some maps and modes where they might be a little bit better than the rest of the brawlers out there. So number 16 is going to be Otis, who has a fantastic super that mutes opponents that can do really well into aggressive or tanky brawlers, and there's several of those in the meta, but Otis does get outgunned a little bit, outranged a fair bit. There's some maps and modes now, especially though, where I do think Otis can work, and there's enough tanks in the meta where I feel like you're going to run into some opposing tanks frequently enough to where you can get some value out of Otis. Next up is number 15, and this one's going to make some people very sad. I know it makes me a little sad too because he's a ton of fun, but that brawler is going to be Fang. Fang, when his hypercharge came out, was absolutely ridiculous. You could do 1 billion damage when dashing through the walls. It was something to be had. It was wreaking havoc on the meta, but since then, Supercell's done a great job of bringing him down a little bit to a more manageable rate. I still think you can get the cool pop-up plays with him. Huge fun factor brawler, but he's not the most winning right now. You got to work for it a little bit more, so I'm pretty happy with the spots Fang in. I don't think it necessarily he needs any buffs or nerfs. He's sitting pretty though, so if you want to unlock Fang, still go for it. He's just not top tier in the meta anymore. Number 14 is going to be Mr. P, who has some great matchups at the top of the meta right now, and as a brawler you're probably not pushing, but maybe you should consider pushing a little bit more. I've talked with pro players who really value this guy. Since those buffs and nerfs that came out about a month ago now, Mr. P is in a solid spot. I think in ladder there are several instances in the brawlers like 8-bit, Jean, who's really relevant, Piper, Bell, any of these single shot brawlers, Angelo even, those spawners are going to do really well. Mr. P is the ultimate ammo waster. I think people hate playing into Mr. P, especially at a more casual level. So if you're somebody looking for another brawler to push, there are several maps and modes and matchups in this current meta that Mr. P is going to do wonderfully into. Number 13, you are either going to love it or you're going to hate it. It is Mortis though. I think Mortis is honestly in a very solid spot right now at a professional level. He's been played a lot more recently, and I think it's because he's got some really really good matchups out there. In ranked, he can be a good surprise pick every once in a while. Obviously, you have to be a good Mortis, though. There are some mechanics involved with him, but I do think it's a little bit easier now to be good with Mortis than it was at certain other metas in the past. If you're trying to get good with the guy, I think it's a good one to try and attack right now. Gain some trophies while you can, because he's in a very solid spot. Number 12 is going to be another assassin, and that assassin is going to be Miko. Miko's really only great in knockout. I've seen him used in bounty some, but it requires the proper combination and usually playing with some buddies rather than randoms on the ladder, so you make sure you can get the right brawlers as your teammate. But Miko is very solid in knockout, things like Flaring Phoenix, Bell's Rock. There's a lot of maps where he can kind of pop off against squishy brawlers, jump in, jump out. He is great for that poke damage, those in-game situations. Miko takes a little bit of skill, and at that upper tier, it can be a little bit trickier to use, but if you're a good Miko, it is going to be great. Again, in knockout specifically, he is going to be excellent. So this is definitely a brawler that deserves to be at the top of B tier, especially from what we've seen from some of these pro players out there that are utilizing him. Number 11 is going to be Gray, and at a professional level, he is going to be awesome, but on ladder, he's more He's in a solid spot, but again, I think in most people's hands, he's not going to be able to be something crazy. He's not the easiest to push on all maps, but I love pushing him in things like Hot Zone. Think of Open Business, think of Dueling Beetles, pair him with some tanks. Trust me, it is going to work so well for you. There are options on ladder where you can push him, so I'm going to kind of balance those things out. Where at a pro level, I would definitely have him in an A tier. For a casual player, he's probably more of a B tier though, so that's why he's going to get our final spot in the B tier at number 11. Now we are going to be going into the top 10. This is where our A tier begins, and these are all brawlers that I feel like are very good right now. I wouldn't necessarily expect to be nerfed, but they're winning brawlers right now and ones you should definitely be looking to push. Cracking the list at number 10 is going to be RT, who's actually in a really good spot right now. At a professional level, he's getting some love, and at a casual level, he should probably be getting some more love too. He's going to do really well into some of these sharpshooters right there. At the in games in knockout, when you can stamp his feet and drop your super in those close range situations, he's awesome. Sometimes you can get those 1-2 taps and then pop a gadget for a kill as well. So in knockout, I actually really like him right now. In some bounty matchups, he's going to do great. So you should probably be playing some RT a little bit more. Number 9, I am putting Chuck here. And honestly, ignore every other game mode other than Heist, where Chuck is an absolute S tier. At any level of play, Chuck is going to be phenomenal. There's very few counters for a Chuck matchup on ladder. He can run rampant. Once you kind of establish those train stations, he's going to be able to plow his way to the enemy safe and just rotate supers in and out. He is absolutely ridiculous on Heist. Again, in all other game modes, just kind of ignore him. He's an S tier in Heist though, and with the rest combined, he's going to sit here at the bottom of A tier. At number 8, I've got Sprout, who is going to be great in KO, Wipeout, and Bounty. He is going to be for more of those elimination type modes, and even as a thrower, he's going to be very solid right now, and it's mostly due to his hypercharge. If you can cycle those walls in and out with your super and gadget combination really well, you're going to get some great matchups with Sprout. Things like Flaring Phoenix, Bell's Rock. There's a lot of maps right now where you can make Sprout work, and the base stat boost with that as a thrower makes him very good right now. It takes some solid mechanics to hit some shots with Sprout, but I think he's pretty approachable right now, especially with that hypercharge, and deserves to be top 10 here. Number 7 is going to be Byron, who's one of the best support brawlers in the game right now. He is an excellent pocket healer, but can also dish out some long range damage as well with his shot. He's got multiple builds with his star powers and gadget. If you play him with teammates, you can kind of comp yourself just right to go with some kind of tanky assassin-esque brawler, pair it with Byron. It's going to be an excellent combination across many different maps and modes. It's one of my favorite things about Byron right now is how versatile he is. You can play him just about anywhere. If you're playing with randoms, you can carry him. If you're playing with friends, you are an excellent asset to then try things like Byron and Colette in Heist, or Byron plus an assassin on some more modes, like something like a Hot Zone or something like Brawl Ball. Byron can fit a lot of different molds, so you should be playing him a lot right now. He's very good. Number 6 is going to be Buster, and if I could only have one tank unlocked in the game, this might be it because of how many different maps and modes he can play with. He synergizes pretty well with a lot of different brawlers right now. 2 of the most popular support brawlers in the game, one being Byron, another we'll talk about soon, go really well with this guy. He has great pressure with that threatening gadget. It's kind of that Gene effect, right? With the pullback gadget, he can do really well in things like Brawl Ball, where you have to pull back an enemy to get a free goal. It's threatening. It makes the mind games work into the opponent. I love that factor with him. He's great for control in things like Knockout when facing those projectile brawlers, those small circles where he can just march his way up and change the momentum of a game. He's a gadget that grants you those kills, or like I said, the goals in Brawl Ball. There's a lot of good stuff for Buster. Buster is very good right now. I have a lot of fun playing Buster too, so I 10 out of 10 recommend trying to give him a go right now. With number 5, we are starting our S tier category. All of these brawlers are the best of the mythic tier, and honestly some of the best brawlers overall in the entire game right now. Number 5 is going to be a tank and assassin all in one. It is going to be Buzz, who has benefited greatly from the new hypercharge that he's gotten. The hypercharge is fun, creates big play potential, and honestly without that hypercharge, I think Buzz drops off quite a bit. I don't even think he's quite an A tier brawler without that hypercharge. I think he's more of a B. The base stat boost plus the hypercharge allowing you to jump from wall to wall makes him very solid. I think in pubs as well, in those latter games, you're going to be able to rotate that hypercharge at least twice a game. Obviously, you have to connect your supers and make them count, but I think Buzz is somebody that hitting the shot isn't necessarily hard when you get up close to the brawler. I think he has huge carry potential. He's a ton of fun. He's a perfect candidate to be an S tier brawler for you all right now. Number 4 is another brawler that has benefited from having a hypercharge, and that brawler is going to be Gene. With that hypercharge and the extra stat boost, Gene's already great kit has made Gene even more special. Gene's always been kind of around. It's been up and down more recently, but especially in the blind format days, Gene was unstoppable. So Gene right back at the top once again. Don't think he's like a top maybe 2 or 3 brawler in the game, but he's definitely in the mix for that top 10. I think he's one of the best brawlers in Mythics right now, especially with knockout. You can secure kills with the pull if you hit it, the poke damage, the decline of healing that you can get if you're playing into a Gene, all things that make him good. In Gym Grab, if you nail a pull, it's a game-winning kind of pull. Even in Brawl Ball, there's some maps I think where you can do well with him on the ladder. He combines really well with some other relevant brawlers, which we'll get to in a moment. I think Gene's in a very good spot right now, so make sure you're playing some Gene. Number 3 is going to follow the trend of the past 2 brawlers I've talked about. It's another one that's gotten a hypercharge more recently. That brawler is going to be Max. Max is a phenomenal support brawler and maybe even the best depending on your playstyle. If you prefer more of the healing style, the long range, Byron could be really, really good, but I feel like Max is also just so good in so many different situations. If you're a good Max, you are threatening everywhere. The recent hypercharge has elevated her back to her former glory. She's at the top of the meta. She was the most played brawler at a professional level. Obviously, there's some skill involved with Max, but it's a good brawler to kind of learn, get the feel for, because if you're good Max, you're probably always going to be relevant and around, even if she does get something like a nerf. Max is always somebody that can work in the right situations and a good brawler just have in your arsenal. So if you're a good Max, you're going to be very tough to take down, and your friends are going to love having a good Max in their team. At number 2, it is a brawler that I feel like I've talked about being at the top of the meta forever now, and despite how many nerfs there have been for her, she is still at the tippy top of the game. And number 2 is going to be Charlie. I feel like at this point, it's pretty safe to say, and something that I think a lot of us have observed in the community, that Charlie is just inherently a huge threat and very good. The spawners, the cocoon, all of it is going to take some serious nerfs, I think, for her to ever be brought down. There's not a lot of hard counters into her either. There's just so many things that she can do well. Those spawners can shut down single shot brawlers. The cocoon ins, supers, hypercharges, you name it. Just having that ability is so good. Keep pushing Charlie. She's still really good at the game, and I think you're going to be able to get a ton of wins with her with randoms or your friends. And finally, the best brawler you could possibly unlock to win on 3v3 ladder right now in the entire game and in the mythic category is going to be Melody. She is still insane right now. At a professional level, she's still getting a ton of play. If you want to win in Heist, run in circles with 3 musical notes. If you want to win in Brawl Ball, 3 supers in 1 for multiple attempts at super shots, traveling up the map, getting kills, you name it, she can do it. The only thing I've seen really stop her is lots of HP on the other team, because her regular shot isn't crazy. It's just with the musical notes and the shield and the supers, which is still a lot. That's getting real nitpicky. She's obviously still insane at the game. If you want to carry your friends or your randoms, this is going to be your best bet.